The Scent of Nightshade. The smell hit Lucy before she even opened the door. Sweet, cloying, and unmistakable, the scent of nightshade. Her breath caught, and her pulse quickened. Her mother's house had always smelled of lavender or lemon balm, never of this. Nightshade was a poison, a killer hidden in plain sight. Her mother had passed away 2 weeks ago, sudden and inexplicable. No illness, no warning. She'd been fine one day, gone the next. The doctors had called it natural causes, but Lucy knew better. Her mother had always been careful with her herbs. She knew every plant's secrets, every tincture's purpose. Nightshade wasn't something you simply mixed by mistake. Lucy hesitated at the threshold of the old Victorian house. The paint peeled in long strips, and the garden, once immaculate, was now overgrown. Her mother had loved the house, though its isolation in the deep woods had always unnerved Lucy. Now it felt like a tomb waiting to swallow her whole. With a deep breath, she stepped inside. The house creaked under her weight, as if waking from a long slumber. Dust motes floated in the air, stirred by the slight breeze. The scent of nightshade grew stronger, almost suffocating. Her heart pounded louder in her ears, but she pressed on. In the hallway, old family portraits lined the walls. Faded faces stared at her, cold, judgmental. Her mother had always been obsessed with their lineage, their connection to the land. The house had been in the family for generations, passed down from one witch to the next. Lucy never bought into that. She'd always seen herself as different, separate from the strange traditions her mother had clung to. A soft, rustling sound echoed from the kitchen. Lucy froze, her breath caught in her throat. The house had been locked. She had the only key. Gripping her bag tighter, she stepped towards the noise. Her mother's herbs were still scattered on the counters, dried and crumbling. But there was something else, a dark stain on the wooden floor, just beneath the sink. She knelt down, her stomach churning. It was a deep, sticky red. Before she could comprehend it, something moved in her peripheral vision, a shadow, quick and silent. Lucy shot to her feet, her pulse spiking. The kitchen felt suddenly oppressive, the air thick and choking. Her mind raced. Someone was in the house. "Mom," she called out instinctively, her voice trembling. The silence that followed was deafening, save for a low whisper, just beneath the surface of hearing, like words spoken underwater. "Lucy." Her blood turned to ice. The voice wasn't her mother's. It was softer, darker, something ancient. She stumbled backward, tripping over the edge of the rug. As she caught herself, her eyes were drawn to the basement door. It was ajar. That door had always been locked. Her mother had forbidden her from going down there as a child, saying it was too dangerous. Lucy had never questioned it, but now the door gaped open like a mouth waiting to consume her. She moved towards it as if in a trance, the nightshade's scent so strong it blurred her vision. Her hand shook as she reached for the knob, pushing the door open wider. The darkness below was impenetrable, swallowing the weak light from the hallway. "Come down, Lucy." The voice was clearer now, beckoning from below. Her legs moved of their own accord, descending one step, then another. The wooden stairs creaked under her weight, groaning as if in protest. Each step felt like it was pulling her deeper into the earth, further away from the world above. At the bottom, the air was frigid, and the darkness pressed against her skin. She fumbled for a light, her fingers brushing against something soft and damp. A single bulb flickered on, casting a sickly yellow light over the space. The basement was empty except for a large wooden chest in the corner, covered in dust. It looked ancient, its metal clasps rusted shut. Her heart raced as she approached it. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a storm. "Open it." Her hands moved against her will, tugging at the rusted locks. They gave way with a groan, and the lid creaked open. Inside, something moved. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, but then she saw it. A mass of writhing roots, black and gnarled, pulsing as if alive. The nightshade plant was growing out of it, its flowers vibrant and deadly. But that wasn't all. Beneath the roots, she glimpsed something pale and skeletal, a hand. Lucy recoiled in horror as the roots twined around the bones, pulling them up, reshaping them. The form was grotesque, a figure twisted and unnatural, with hollow eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. "Mother?" Lucy whispered, but the thing that emerged from the chest was not her mother. It was something far older, far darker. It smiled, and the scent of nightshade filled her lungs. Lucy staggered back, her breath catching in her throat as the thing in front of her slowly unfolded itself, rising to its full height. The figure was taller than her mother had ever been, its limbs unnaturally long and bent at wrong angles. Its skin was pale and thin like parchment, stretched over sharp bones, and the hollow eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light stared through her, not at her. The smile on its face never wavered. "Lucy," the voice was a soft, rasping echo of her mother's, but there was something else beneath it, something ancient and sinister. "You've come home, just like I knew you would." She backed away, her body trembling uncontrollably. "You're not her," she managed to whisper, her voice barely audible. "What are you?" The thing tilted its head, a grotesque mockery of curiosity. "I am what she was, what all of your bloodline has been. You've denied it, but you can't escape your heritage." It took a step forward, and the roots twined around its feet like tendrils, dragging the scent of the nightshade with it. "This house, this land, it calls to you, Lucy. You belong to it." "No," she cried, stumbling against the wall. "I'm nothing like you." She fumbled for the door, but the darkness seemed to close in around her, thick and tangible, like the very shadows had come alive. The house itself seemed to groan, the walls creaking in protest as if resisting her escape. The creature laughed, a hollow, wheezing sound. "Your mother fought, too. She thought she could control it, that she could protect you from the truth. But the nightshade claimed her, as it will claim you." Lucy's vision blurred, her thoughts spiraling in panic. The scent was overwhelming now, intoxicating, pulling her deeper into the madness. She felt the weight of generations bearing down on her, the bloodline she had always rejected, the strange rituals her mother had whispered about in hushed tones. It had never made sense to her before, but now, in the presence of this horror, she understood. This was her inheritance. As the creature moved closer, Lucy's hands brushed against something cold and metallic, a small vial on the dusty shelf. Her mother's tinctures. Her fingers closed around it instinctively, and without thinking, she hurled it at the thing's face. The glass shattered, and the liquid inside hissed as it made contact with the creature's skin. It screamed, a horrible, piercing wail that shook the very foundations of the house. The roots recoiled, and the figure writhed, its form twisting and melting, as if the tincture was burning through it. Lucy didn't wait. She bolted up the stairs, her legs shaking beneath her. The house seemed to be collapsing around her, the walls buckling, the floorboards groaning as she ran. The whispers grew louder, angrier, clawing at her mind, but she pushed them away. She had to get out. She had to escape. Bursting through the front door, she stumbled into the overgrown garden, gasping for breath. The night was still and silent, the stars watching her from above like cold, distant eyes. Behind her, the house stood dark and looming, but the smell of nightshade was gone. Lucy didn't stop to look back. She ran into the woods, her heart pounding, her mind reeling. The house, the lineage, the thing that had once been her mother, it was all behind her now. But as she disappeared into the trees, one thought gnawed at the edges of her consciousness. The nightshade always grows back.